Dear Asian people, please stop being so racist and anti-black all the time. When we seek white acceptance, we're being anti-black. You know what black people are saying about the whole H-Mart controversy? They're sitting this one out. They're eating popcorn and watching us because they're tired of helping us. Black people have been saying this shit for years. Everyone, including Asian people, have been appropriating black culture far longer and more insidiously than any other group. How are we going to expect black people to be in solidarity with us when we're still so anti-black and crave proximity to whiteness? Asians are where we are today because black and indigenous people fought for our civil rights, yet y'all still want to sit at the white people's table. Asians are still eating into the model minority myth, and a lot of y'all are still obsessed with chasing after wealth or prestige using the same systems that have exploited black people for generations. And just because you went to a good school, landed a corporate job, or assimilated into white culture doesn't mean you can become politically apathetic and throw under the bus all the black activists and organizers who have fought tirelessly so you can enjoy the rights that you have today. Asians, please stop being so complicit in white supremacy. It's embarrassing. If we want to advance Asian American rights, we have to fight against white supremacy alongside black and brown people.
So now that we are off into our delineation, I can't even say the word delineation, from these other groups, everybody's starting to panic and run for cover. Now, for a minute, we was going off on the Latinos. We was holding the Africans accountable. We was holding the Caribbean folks accountable, right? Now, the Asians are coming out now, and they're trying to come out now and get out in front of this and call out anti-black racism, right? They're calling out their community. They're saying that their community are very racist towards black Americans. Now, mind you, over the years, I've told you that we funded their American dream. They've come into this country, these Chinese and Koreans. They set up shop in black communities all across America. And we have been their best friend. W folks didn't want them, but they tried their best to ingratiate themselves into W folks' culture, running over there, marrying them, going to the universities, thinking that they arrived, right? And looking down on us. They spent generations looking down on us while we've done nothing but patronize them. We have funded the Korean and the Chinese American dream, from nail salons to massage parlors to Chinese stores to cleaners, you name it. They've opened up corner stores, grocery stores, everything right in the black community. And they've made billions of dollars off the black community in the last 40 to 50 years, right? But yet and still, anti-black racism was strong within their communities. So now you have Asians coming out and saying this.
Seen a few comments like this with, Asians and black people fighting in my comment section. And honestly, it shows how little we actually talk about the history behind all of this. The tension didn't just magically appear. It was shaped by decades of laws, segregation, stereotypes, and political narratives that pushed our communities apart. When Asian immigrants first came to the US, they weren't allowed to live just anywhere. Segregation forced them into black and brown neighborhoods because those are the only areas open to anyone who wasn't white. So Asians and black Americans were physically close, but not always connected. Different languages, different histories, limited communication, misunderstandings grew out of that. Then in the 1960s, during the Civil Rights Movement, the US created the model minority myth. The idea that Asian Americans were successful, quiet, and proof that racism doesn't exist. That stereotype was never meant to lift Asians up. It was meant to contrast Asians against black Americans and basically say, see, they're doing fine, why can't you? It was a political tool that built resentment and pressure on both sides, even though neither community created that narrative. At the same time, anti-blackness already existed in some Asian cultures because of colonialism, colorism, and Western media influence. And for some black Americans, their only interactions with Asians were through local businesses, corner stores, nail salons, restaurants, situations that were transactional, not relational. That created frustration and stereotypes on both sides. But here's the thing. In both communities, it's only a small handful of people who are actually hateful or racist. A few loud, ignorant individuals do not represent millions of us. We can't let the worst examples define entire communities. Then COVID hit and all of this got amplified again. Anti-Asian hate skyrocketed. Elderly Asians were attacked, harassed, and blamed for the virus, all because of fear and political scapegoating. Some of the viral videos showed attackers who were black, and suddenly that tiny number of incidents turned into a whole narrative online like black people hate Asians, which was inaccurate and unfair. What people forget is that Black activists and Black organizations publicly stood with Asian communities during that time. People protested for us. They protected Asian elders. They spoke out against the hate. But the media rarely highlighted the solidarity, only the violence. And yes, some Asians responded by generalizing those incidents and blaming the entire Black community, which made things even worse, even though the majority of Black people had nothing to do with those attacks. COVID didn't create new racism. It exposed what was already unaddressed and made stereotypes louder because everyone was scared and hurting. But amid all of that, we forget that historically there has also been real solidarity. Asian American activists learned organizing strategies from Black civil rights leaders. Filipino and Black farm workers united under Larry Itliong and Cesar Chavez. Japanese American activists stood with the Black Panthers. Yuri Kochiyama worked alongside Malcolm X. In Oakland, Black and Asian communities built programs together to fight poverty and injustice. These are real alliances. They just don't get talked about as much as the conflicts. That's why we need to zoom out. Like, a handful of ignorant people shouldn't define entire communities. A bad experience shouldn't turn into a stereotype. We shouldn't let old narratives and old wounds be recycled and divide us again. Asians and Black people have both faced discrimination, exclusion, violence, and being treated like outsiders. We have more in common than we think, and when we work together, there's real power, real healing, and real progress. We just have to stop letting fear, stereotypes, and misinformation talk louder than the history and solidarity we actually come from.
And see, I hear this young lady talking, and she's very young and maybe don't understand the full history, but this model minority and all the stuff that she talking, these groups never tried to really align with us. Richard Okoye, who was one of the ranking members, the only non-Black ranking member in the Black Panthers, was a freaking agent. He's a freaking informant, a federal informant from like 1961 to 1977, right? He wasn't riding with us. He wasn't for the struggle. He infiltrated the struggle of our people, knowing what we were going through as a people, and he was reporting back to the FBI. These people was relegated into our communities, and maybe some of them, like Bruce Lee and them, wasn't racist, but the majority of them had anti-Black racism from the start. Because you got to understand something: when the Europeans took over Hong Kong and China, man, they left all that racism and all that color tier system, everything there. The same thing they did there, the same thing was done in India. Man, all of these groups hate the darker races, man, and they've been conditioned through social engineering and through colonialism to do it, right? So now they come here, they have this preconceived notions about Black people. They've always had it, right? They've never sought to really unify with us. They benefit from us, but they come here to do their own thing, right? This system was breaking this down.
Let's have the conversation that people love to sidestep, because anti-Blackness does not just come from white folks, and it for sure did not just appear out of nowhere. And if we're serious about solidarity, we have to trace where it actually started. Now, first thing, this is not about all Asian communities. That's lazy, and I am not lazy. But when we talk about patterns, we're talking about systems. And the system made sure that anti-Blackness wasn't just exported, it was globalized. See, when European powers colonized Asia, they didn't just take the land, they also imported hierarchy. They pushed the idea that lighter skin meant civility, wealth, purity, and darker skin was poverty, backwardness, and danger. And that colonial script seeped deep, from India to the Philippines, all the way to Japan. Skin tone became the ladder, and whiteness was always at the top. If we fast forward to Asian immigration in the US, you arrive in a country that's already built on anti-Blackness, already criminalizing Black life. And what do politicians do? They dangle a deal. If you distance yourself from Black people, we'll give you a seat closer to whiteness. And that's where the model minority myth comes in. It was never a compliment. It was always a weapon. The government used it in the 1960s to say, hey, look at these Asian immigrants. They work hard. They follow the rules. Why can't Black folks do the same? And that's when it turns survival into separation. And here's the ugly truth. Some communities actually leaned into it, right? Because of your family's safety, your visa, your livelihood depends on being seen as the good immigrant, you'll play the role, even if it means stepping on Black people to do it. But don't get it twisted. This was not organic hate. It was policy. It was propaganda. And it worked because it kept us divided while white supremacy stayed in power. So when we talk about Asian anti-Blackness today, whether it shows up in colorism, anti-Black policing in Asian-owned shops, or even silence around Black death, we've got to understand that it didn't just fall from the sky. It was planted by colonizers, by governments, by systems that profit when we fight each other and not them. And until we name that history, we are not building solidarity. We're just repeating the cycle. And I, for one, refuse to keep the cycle quiet.
Now I often tell you guys that we have no friends. You know, understanding the communities when it comes to politics and economics, everything that we vote for and fight for, they vote against. Because their lifestyle is predicated on our dysfunction. They come into our communities, right, and they make money off of us being disenfranchised, separated from each other, not working together. They buy up all the property. We go and we patronize their store, and over time, they make hundreds of millions and millions of dollars. Now they have a whole bunch of money and equity to come into the community and buy it up and just push you out, right? They become your landlords. They become everything because we are dysfunctional within our communities. So when we're fighting to get ourselves together and we're fighting for reparations and we're fighting for this, they're not going to come out in solidarity and support us. No. Because if you stop and look and use your brain, they become who they became in this country because of who we are, because of the positions that we're in. There we go. Because of the positions that we're in. W folks didn't let them into their community or their culture. And that's just what it is. That's just the way it is. So like, no, man, like, there is no model minority. We don't have no friends. They have the Asian hate bill. And when they had the Asian hate bill, they used the black image for the reason for them to have it. As if we've been the ones terrorizing them for the last 50 years in this country. No, we've been doing nothing but making them rich, making their pockets fatter. The Koreans owe the black community everything. The Chinese owe the black community everything, right? But yet and still, we're always used as the face of violence, the face of danger, the face of everything. And everybody takes advantage of that. So I'm telling you, we don't have no friends. And when you talk reparations, you talk separating, delineating, and all those different things, they get a little nervous now. Because now you're messing with their purse strings. Now you're messing with their pockets. Because their lifestyle is predicated on your dysfunction. So if you made it this far in the video, hit that like button, subscribe to Street Media TV, leave your comments in the comment section. Remember, I love y'all. Till the next time. Peace.